It ought to concern every person because it is a debasement of our common humanity. It ought to concern every community because it tears at our social fabric. It ought to concern every business because it distorts markets. It ought to concern every nation because it endangers public health and fuels violence and organized crime. I'm talking about the injustice, the outrage of human trafficking, which must be called by its true name, modern slavery.
So new this midday, San Diego County is cracking down on human sex trafficking after seeing it rise over the last 5 years.
What we're seeing in law enforcement, young girls, 15, 16 years old, being trafficked.
Yeah, you know, San Diego is already one of the top cities in the country for child sex trafficking.
A harsh reality and a business so lucrative, DA Bonnie Dumanis says it brings rival gangs together.
Wait a minute, you were pimping?
I've been pimping forever.
We gotta talk about
I didn't know you was pimping, Gunplay. I just thought you were a straight savage.
Now, I do not use that word slavery lightly. It evokes, obviously, one of the most painful chapters in our nation's history. But around the world, there's no denying the awful reality. When a man desperate for work finds himself in a factory or on a fishing boat or in a field, working, toiling for little or no pay and beaten if he tries to escape, that is slavery. When a woman is locked in a sweatshop or trapped in a home as a domestic servant, alone and abused, and incapable of leaving, that's slavery. When a little boy is kidnapped, turned into a child soldier, forced to kill or be killed, that's slavery. When a little girl is sold by her impoverished family, girl's my daughter's age, runs away from home or is lured by the false promise of a better life and then imprisoned in a brothel and tortured if she resists, that's slavery. It is barbaric and it is evil and it has no place in a civilized world.
Well, human trafficking is a form of modern-day slavery, where perpetrators profit from the control and exploitation of men, women, and children, either for sex, labor, or both. We believe that it is the biggest human rights violation of our time. Human trafficking is the second most profitable criminal industry behind the drug trade. It's a global problem, and we're taking steps to combat it locally.
What's it like for the girls while they're being trafficked?
They feel scared, they feel abused, they feel taken advantage of, they feel embarrassed. The traffickers see these girls as objects and as money makers for them. They brainwash them completely, and the girls feel that they have to go out and do what the pimps tell them to do because they're scared, they're brainwashed, and they don't know any better.
Wait a minute, you were pimping?
I've been pimping forever.
We gotta talk about
I didn't know you was pimping, Gunplay. I just thought you was a straight savage.
When did you start pimping? This is.
I started pimping. Let me see, 2000.
How do you convince a girl
2002
to sell pussy and give you all the money?
How do you not?
I'll tell you a lot of ways.
Look, you gotta understand. Look, let me tell you something about women.
Yeah,
women they need, especially ones that don't have their father figure in their life, don't have anybody to shield them, any comfort in their life. You come along and you give them that comfort. You fill that void. You don't have to ask for the money.
In what way would you do that? In what way would you give them the comfort and fill the void?
Playing the daddy role, just being there for them.
Just giving a
yeah.
That easy.
Yeah, it's that easy.
There is no community that it doesn't touch, it affects the impoverished communities just as much as it affects the well-to-do areas of the county of San Diego. And we see that a lot of these youths are being recruited through the internet, and it's becoming an increasing problem because of the internet.
So just tell us, start at the beginning, like how did it all start?
Right before I became a teenager, when I was 8 and 9 years old, I had someone from my neighborhood actually sexually abuse me, and that brought this enormous amount of shame and disgust and just terrible feelings that were inside of me. When I was a teen, I grew up and I was very, very rebellious towards my father because my father was really angry all the time. Our home never felt safe. When I was a young girl, just like any young girl does, she craves the affection of her father. I just wanted to know that my dad cared about me. That's really important to a child. And when I was a little girl, I never got that from my father. By the time I turned into a teenager, I was pretty insecure, but I became really, really wild. And I started going out to the clubs because I was really overworked, and my girlfriend and I started drinking, and we met these two guys at the bar one day, and we didn't know it, but they were pimps. And when we met these guys at the bar, they told us, oh, we're real estate moguls, we own car lots. And I told her, get his money. So she goes to Hawaii and calls me up from Hawaii and tells me that she's making all this crazy amount of money. And she was making a couple thousand a night. And I told her, no way, you're lying. She's like, girl, come out here, fly to Hawaii. I'm gonna fly you out here and show you what I'm doing. So I went to Hawaii and I took a 2-week vacation. That's all it took.
When you came back to Minnesota and you started working at strip clubs?
I didn't start at strip clubs right away. I started as the escort services first, but then I had a couple guys that tried to kill me. So I got scared and I started working in the strip clubs. Hunting knives and shotguns to my head. We're getting raped with a knife, like a hunting knife with teeth on it, you know? It's like, Even though I didn't start out strip dancing, it's eventually where I landed. And when I started strip dancing, that's when I met my pimp. One day I'm dancing in the nightclub, it's a strip club, and this man walks up to the stage and he puts all this money below me. My attention was totally drawn to him. I was just staring at his face, staring at the money. He asked me to have a drink. He buys me a rose, takes me out to dinner. We start hanging out, tells me he's in love with me. I'm like, what, you're in love with me? I'm a stripper, and guess what? I'm also a hustler. On the side, I get money. And he goes, oh, you're really smart. And I thought to myself, man, I could love someone like this. This guy appreciates me. And so my girlfriend calls me up from Las Vegas and says, hey girl, I'm in Vegas. The money, it's double the money than Hawaii. And I was like, what? And I got to Las Vegas, and the first night that I worked, made a bunch of money, put it in my Chanel purse. After I put my purse on the counter, my pimp looked at me and said, break yourself. Basically that means in the pimp language, give me all your money. And they own the person. The pimp owns the person, and you become a slave. I was like, I'm not giving you anything. I don't know who you think I'm not working for you. And he just started to slap me and drag me from the living room into the kitchen and take the cupboard doors and start slamming my head in it. You know, blood squirting out of my eyes. And then he took me out to the back of the house and he started to beat me, and he was screaming, this is pimpin', B, break yourself. And I was stuck. I think what shocked me the most out of that entire situation is the fact that I really, really believed that he loved me with all his heart. I never knew that he was a pimp, and I never thought he would turn on me the way that he did. And that was the first night that I was sex trafficked. I stayed with this man for 5 years and actually escaped him and got away, but he kidnapped me back. I got with another man, 5 years again, another pimp. He abused me almost as bad, and he put bars on the window of our house. He would torture me. He would lock me in there. He would play Russian roulette with the .45 Magnum and click the barrel at my head, and I would jump because I didn't know if I was going to die that day. And there was one day that my brother, Chuck, came with a shotgun, pulled up to the house, came out of the car and pulled out the gun and said, "She's coming with me today." And he stood up to my pimp. And I packed all my stuff and I left. The first pimp, I left with nothing. Second pimp, I left with no money because he had the money hidden. And even though I made millions of dollars, I left with nothing. When I was with my second pimp, I wasn't feeling well and I had these lumps on my neck, so I went to the doctor, and the doctor told me that I had cancer. And I instantly thought to myself, God's judging me. God's angry with me and my lifestyle, and now I'm going to die. When I came down with cancer, the doctor prescribed me a painkiller. I had never taken one before. And that eventually led me into my cocaine addiction. And one night, I overdosed and I took it too far. I had so many drugs in my system that honestly, I should have died. That's what my doctor said. My friend called the ambulance. I was on the floor. I went completely blind. I couldn't hear anything. It kind of sounded like a tornado where there was like a train sound inside my mind. I saw my coffin laid out before me. I was in the coffin. There was a funeral going on. It was my funeral. And I saw my mom in my funeral. And she walked towards the coffin and she said she was just a prostitute. And there was something inside of me, and it just made me cry out. And I said, Jesus, if you're real, and if you love me, would you please give me a second chance? And I asked him to save me. That day changed my life. I have never gone back to drugs since. I've never gone back to prostitution since, or sex trafficking. My life was full of hell. I was broken, I was disgusted, I was completely torn apart, but God rebuilt me. And that's why I actually started Hookers for Jesus, because I felt that God had given me so much love, and He had given me so much grace, and He had given me such an awesome second chance, that there was no way on this God-given beautiful planet that we have here that I was not going to go back out there and tell His daughters and tell His people that He is in love with them, and that He not only loves them, He wants to heal them, He wants to give them a beautiful life. I was so in bondage to the lifestyle of having money and things and status and success, that the only way that I actually ever became free was when I realized that Jesus loved me. That freed up everything in my heart, and no longer did I have to be a slave.
Cool.
True though, right?
Yeah.
I'm here today to defend the right to pursue happiness. And I believe that it is incumbent upon us as citizens of this nation, as Americans, to bestow that right upon others, upon each other, and upon the rest of the world. But the right to pursue happiness for so many is stripped away. It's raped. It's abused. It's taken by force, fraud, or coercion. It is sold for the momentary happiness of another.
To the victims being exploited by traffickers and bought like products for sex, there is hope, and we are committed.
You know, happiness can be given to no man. it must be earned. It must be earned through generosity and through purpose. But the right to pursue it, is every man's right. And I beg of you that if you give people the right to pursue it, what you may find in return is happiness for yourself. Thank you.
We've called you today
you
to
so
the
much.
gym because we believe that the message of slavery, the message that it still exists and that still affects us here in San Diego, is a message that needs to be known. Because we believe that only when the ugliness of the world, only when the horrors of these infringements of rights, only when these are brought to light, then will we be able to make a difference. And we believe that freedom can be found if it is found in love. We believe that love is the foundation for our freedom. We want you to share that freedom and share this message with the rest of the world.